had just returned home after a year overseas, serving in a war zone. The weight of the uniform, the endless hours of training, and the memories of what I had seen during my deployment still felt heavy on my shoulders. I thought that coming home would be the end of the battle, the beginning of rest and relaxation. But the moment I stepped through the door of the house I had worked so hard to build with her, I knew something was wrong. The door was wide open, the lights were dim, and a strange emptiness filled the air. It wasn't just the usual stillness of a quiet house. It was a silence that felt like it was holding its breath. I called out for Sarah, my wife. No response. I made my way through the living room, my boots clicking against the hardwood floors. The house looked different. The furniture, once carefully arranged, was gone. The walls that had once been filled with pictures of our family, of us, were bare. It felt as though the life we had built had been swept away in the blink of an eye. I stopped dead in my tracks when I saw it. A single envelope, placed neatly on the kitchen counter. My name was written in her handwriting. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Slowly, I walked toward the envelope, my hands trembling as I picked it up. Inside, there was a letter that would change everything. Dear John, it began. I know this isn't easy to read, but I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep waiting for you to come back, not knowing when or if you would. I sold the house. It was the only way I could move on. I hope you understand. This isn't a decision I made lightly, but it's the best thing for me. I'm sorry. My heart dropped. Sold the house? How could she do this? How could she make such a monumental decision without even consulting me? For 13 years, I had given my all to our life together, to her, and this was how she chose to handle it? It didn't make sense. I had been out there fighting for our future, and she had taken the first opportunity to walk away from it all. My mind raced, trying to process what this meant. We had plans, dreams for the future. We had talked about growing old together, building our family, creating a home where our kids could grow up and feel safe. And now she had sold it all. Our home, our memories, everything. I couldn't understand it. I spent the next few hours pacing, trying to make sense of what had happened. My mind kept returning to that letter. I couldn't keep waiting for you to come back. Cut deeper than any wound I'd sustained overseas. It wasn't just the house. It was the trust, the promises, everything that had been shattered. I thought of the last time we had spoken before I left. I had kissed her goodbye, promising I'd be back soon. We had held each other tight, telling each other we'd get through it, that we were strong enough to weather the storm. But while I was out there fighting for us, she had made a choice, and it wasn't the one I thought we would make together. I grabbed my phone, intending to call her, but I hesitated. What could I say? What was there left to say? She had already made her choice, and now I had to make mine. But one thing was for certain. I wasn't going to let this go. She might have thought I would just accept it, that I would let her get away with breaking everything we had built. But she was wrong. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I was going to strike back. I wasn't just going to let her take everything. No, I had fought too hard to lose it all without a fight. The night felt endless. The anger, confusion, and betrayal churned in my chest like a storm that wouldn't settle. I paced the floor of the house that had once been my sanctuary. The house she had sold. The house I had fought for, built memories in, and had come to think of as a symbol of everything we had worked toward together. I grabbed my phone again, dialing Sarah's number for the third time in an hour. She hadn't answered yet. I wasn't sure if she was avoiding me, or if she just didn't have the courage to face what she had done. Either way, I needed answers. I needed to hear it from her. But deep down, I already knew the truth. She had made a choice, and that choice was to leave everything behind. But I wasn't just going to let it end like this. I wasn't going to let her betrayal be the final chapter of my story. No, this wasn't the end for me. This was the beginning of my fight back. I spent the next few hours planning, going through the old files I had kept in my office, pulling together everything I could. The house was sold, but the documents, the ownership papers, the financial records, they were still out there, and I was going to find a way to take control of it all. I wasn't going to rely on Sarah's lies anymore. She thought she had left me with nothing, but she had underestimated me. She didn't know the man I had become during that year I spent away. That man had learned to fight for survival, to make difficult decisions, to trust his instincts. And now that man was going to fight for what was rightfully his. The first step was to consult a lawyer. I needed to know my legal standing, what I could do to reclaim the house and the assets I had worked so hard to earn. After a few calls, I set up a meeting with a lawyer who specialized in divorce cases and financial disputes. He was known for being sharp, ruthless when necessary, and he had a reputation for winning cases that seemed hopeless. The next day, I arrived at his office. It wasn't flashy, but it had a sense of quiet authority, just like the lawyer himself. We sat down, and I explained everything. The betrayal, the sale of the house, the lies, and the financial complications Sarah had created. "We need to act fast," the lawyer said after reviewing the details. "We can go after the sale of the house and I'll work." I nodded. "I'm ready. I've already been through too much to back down now." Over the next few days, I worked with the lawyer to put together a case. The evidence we gathered from the sale of the house, from Sarah's financial mismanagement, was damning. She had taken advantage of my absence, sold our home without my consent, and now she was trying to claim everything as her own. But she hadn't realized one thing. I wasn't the same person who had left for war. The man who returned was stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever. The plan was simple but powerful. We would fight for the house and my share of the assets. We would expose the lies and I would take back what was mine. Not just the property, but the life that she had tried to erase. The house wasn't just a building. It was a symbol of everything she had taken from me, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. A few days later, I received a call from Sarah. She was finally ready to talk. "Jake," she said, her voice calm but with a hint of guilt. "I know you're angry, but you have to understand, I did what I thought was best for both of us. I thought if I sold the house, it would help us move forward." I felt the anger rise in my chest. "You thought it was best? You didn't even give me a chance to make that decision. You didn't consult me, you didn't think about what it would do to me. You just made the choice on your own. You sold our home without even telling me, without any regard for what we had built together." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost feel her regret through the phone. But it wasn't enough. It was too late for apologies. "I'm not going to let you get away with this, Sarah," I said, my voice firm. "I've already taken the necessary steps to reverse this. I'm going to fight for what's mine, and you're going to have to face the consequences of your actions." There was silence for a moment. Then, Sarah spoke, her voice trembling. "You won't win, Jake. You can't do this. You'll just make everything worse." "No," I said, a sense of calm settling over me. "I'm not going to make it worse. I'm going to make it right. You may have thought you could take everything from me, but you were wrong. I'm not giving up. Not now. Not ever." With that, I hung up the phone, the weight of the conversation lingering in the air. The battle was on, and I was ready. Sarah thought she could destroy me, but I was going to strike back, and this time I wouldn't be the one left standing in the rubble. A few weeks had passed since that phone call with Sarah, and the weight of what was about to come hit me every time I walked through the door of my temporary apartment. I had given everything for this life, every waking hour, every sacrifice made, and yet I was here, fighting for something that should have been mine all along. The legal battle was just beginning, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. Sarah's lawyer was sharp, and I wasn't about to underestimate him. He'd been working with her for years, and he had one goal: to make sure she got what she wanted, no matter who got hurt in the process. But I wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not after everything. I sat in my lawyer's office, going over the details of the case. The evidence was solid. The sale of the house had been underhanded, done behind my back while I was thousands of miles away. But it wasn't just the house. It was the betrayal. It was the trust she had shattered, the life we had built that she decided to sell off without a second thought. "Jake, we have a strong case," Karen, my lawyer, said, looking over the documents. "We've got enough here to challenge the sale in court. The fact that she sold it without your consent is the key. This isn't just a financial issue, it's a matter of legal rights, and we have the upper hand." I nodded, trying to focus. It was hard not to think about everything that had led me here. The nights I spent thinking about our future. The quiet moments we had shared, planning for a life beyond the chaos of my deployments. The years I had spent believing in her, trusting her. And now it was all gone. But I had learned something valuable over the last few months. I wasn't alone. I had people who believed in me. I had a purpose now. And this fight wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about taking control of my future, making sure I wasn't left with nothing after all the sacrifices I had made. The trial date was set. The court date that would determine my fate and Sarah's as well. I knew I had the law on my side, but I also knew that Sarah would stop at nothing to manipulate the situation to her advantage. She had already tried to make me feel guilty for what had happened, but I wouldn't fall for it. Not again. The day of the trial arrived and I found myself standing outside the courthouse, taking a deep breath before stepping inside. The sun was bright, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. I wasn't going to let Sarah or her lawyer intimidate me. This wasn't just about getting back my house. It was about standing up for what was right. I walked into the courtroom, my heart pounding in my chest. It was strange, being here, facing her again after all this time. She was sitting on the other side of the room, her face calm, as if nothing had changed. But I saw the nervousness behind her eyes. She knew what was at stake, just as I did. Karen and I sat down at our table, ready to present our case. The courtroom was filled with people, but everything felt distant, like I was in a tunnel, focused only on Sarah and the fight ahead. The judge entered and we all rose. As the trial began, I felt the weight of the moment. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment I could finally take control of the narrative of my life. I wasn't just going to let Sarah walk away from this, thinking she had one. No, this was my chance to reclaim everything I had worked for. The proceedings began and Sarah's lawyer stood up first. He painted a picture of a broken marriage, of two people who simply couldn't get along anymore. He tried to make it seem like I was the one who had caused all the issues, that I had been absent, distant, that I had neglected my responsibilities. But every word felt like a lie. He had no idea what I had been through, no idea the sacrifices I had made. When it was my turn, I stood up slowly, taking a moment to gather myself. I wasn't going to let my emotions get the best of me. I needed to be clear, concise, and focused. This wasn't about blame, it was about truth. Your Honor, I began, my voice steady. I served my country. I fought for our future, for my family. I trusted Sarah, I trusted the woman I married. But while I was overseas, she sold our home, our family home, without even consulting me. She made a decision that affected all of us without considering what it would do to me or to our children. I paused, letting the words sink in. I saw Sarah shift in her seat, her face flushing slightly. I didn't care. This wasn't about her feelings anymore. This was about what was right. I'm not here to destroy her, I continued. I'm here to reclaim what is rightfully mine. The house wasn't just a building. It was our future. And I won't stand by while it's taken from me. The room was silent. The judge looked down at the papers, then at Sarah and her lawyer. I had said what needed to be said. Now it was in their hands. The courtroom felt colder than ever as we waited for the judge to make his decision. I sat there, feeling the tension building in my chest. Sarah's lawyer had made his final argument, twisting the facts and trying to paint me as the villain. It was the same game she had played for months, turn everything around and make it seem like I was the problem. But this time I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. As Sarah's lawyer sat down, I couldn't help but notice how confident he looked. He thought he had one. He thought that because I had been away, I would just roll over and accept whatever they handed me. But he didn't know who he was up against now. I wasn't that same man who had left for war. I wasn't the man who came back broken and confused. No. I was a man who had learned the hard way that when life knocks you down, you get back up and fight. And that's exactly what I was doing now. The judge looked at both sides, his gaze cold and thoughtful. We will take a recess, he said, his voice steady. I'll review the evidence and make my decision. I nodded, taking a deep breath. As the room emptied, I stood up, feeling the weight of the moment. My lawyer, Karen, walked up to me, a reassuring smile on her face. You did well today, she said. You've made your case. Now we wait. But I wasn't just waiting for the judge's decision. I was waiting for the moment when everything came together, when I could finally take control of my life again. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with thoughts of the trial, of everything Sarah had done, of everything I had lost. But then I thought of my children, their laughter, their smiles. They were the reason I had to keep fighting. I wasn't going to let their future be shaped by Sarah's selfish actions. They deserved better. The next day, we returned to the courtroom. My stomach churned with anticipation as we waited for the judge to enter. The silence felt heavier than before, as if everyone in the room was holding their breath. The judge finally walked in and we all stood. He took his seat and looked down at the documents in front of him. I couldn't read his expression. Was he going to rule in my favor? Would he side with Sarah? After a moment, the judge cleared his throat. After reviewing all the evidence and considering both sides, I've come to my decision. I could feel the tension in the room. Every muscle in my body was tense, waiting for him to speak. Jake Parker, the judge said, his voice steady and authoritative, you have presented a compelling case. The sale of the house without your consent was a breach of your rights. I am ruling in your favor. The sale will be reversed and the property will be returned to you. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I could barely process the words. I had won. The house, the property, everything that had been taken from me was mine again. I looked over at Sarah. Her face had turned pale, her lips pressed into a tight line. I didn't feel satisfaction or revenge in that moment. I felt relief. I had fought for what was mine and now I had it back. But the win wasn't just about the house. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my peace of mind, and my life. Sarah might have thought she could take it all away from me, but she was wrong. I had taken it back and I was stronger for it. As we left the courtroom, Karen patted me on the back. You did it, Jake. This is just the beginning of your new life. I nodded, a weight lifting off my shoulders. I wasn't just walking out of that courtroom with my property. I was walking out with my future. The days that followed were filled with paperwork, legal meetings, and the process of reclaiming my home. But for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. I wasn't worried about losing everything. I wasn't worried about Sarah's next move. I had one. And that victory, small as it might have seemed, was everything. I spent the next few weeks settling back into my home. The kids and I worked together, fixing up the rooms, repainting the walls, and making the house feel like home again. It wasn't just about the house, it was about rebuilding our lives, making sure my kids knew that no matter what happened, we could always rise from the ashes. I looked over at Olivia, who had been my constant support through all of this. Her presence was my strength. She never wavered, never doubted me, and with her by my side, I knew that I could face anything. We had come a long way since that first day I walked back into the house after being away. Sarah had sold everything she could take, but she couldn't take my will to fight. She couldn't take my resilience. And she couldn't take my future. The victory in the courtroom was only the beginning. While I had won back my home, there was still so much work to be done. The house, which had once been filled with the sounds of laughter and love, had become a place of ghostly silence. But I wasn't going to let it stay that way. This was her home. And I was going to make sure it was more than just four walls. It was time to rebuild everything. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into the work. Every evening after work, I'd pick up my tools, fix broken furniture, clean out the clutter, and repaint the walls. The house began to feel like it had a heartbeat again, like it was waking up from a long slumber. The kids pitched in too, taking pride in the small tasks, from planting flowers outside to rearranging their rooms. As we worked, I realized just how much I had neglected the space during the chaos of the past year. Sarah had taken the reins and sold it without a second thought, but now it was my turn to take control. I didn't just want the house back, I wanted it to be a symbol of our new beginning. I wanted to make sure my children, my family, knew that no matter what happened, we would always have a home. But rebuilding the house wasn't the only thing I had to focus on. I had to rebuild myself. The war had already taken so much from me. But Sarah's betrayal, it had stripped me of everything I thought I knew. Trust, security, and stability had all been shattered in an instant. I had to pick up the pieces. I started spending more time with my kids, trying to fill the space with positive memories. The mornings were spent making pancakes together, the afternoons at the park or on family outings. Slowly, we were healing. Slowly, we were becoming a family again. And then there was Olivia. She had been my rock throughout all of this. She had never wavered in her support, never questioned me when I had my doubts. But even though I appreciated everything she had done for me, I still wasn't sure I was ready to take that next step. The pain of betrayal, the scars left from Sarah's actions, still lingered. How could I trust again? How could I open myself up to someone else after everything? One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Olivia and I sat down on the couch together, the soft glow of the lamp lighting the room. She looked at me with those caring eyes, and for the first time, I saw the concern in her gaze. You know you don't have to go through this alone, right? She asked gently, her voice full of understanding. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I know. But sometimes I feel like I'm still carrying so much from the past. I don't want to bring that into what we have. Olivia reached over and took my hand. Jake, I'm not asking you to forget the past. I just want to be here for you while you heal. You've been through so much already, and I know you're strong enough to face it. But I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for the long haul. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had been afraid to open up, afraid that I would lose myself again in a relationship. But Olivia wasn't asking for me to rush. She was asking me to heal, to move forward, but to do it at my own pace. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You don't know how much that means to me." She smiled softly, her hand resting on mine. "I do know. Because I'm here. And I want you to know that you don't have to face this alone." That night, I lay in bed, thinking about everything that had happened. The house, the betrayal, the war, all of it had shaped who I was. But in that moment, I realized that the most important thing wasn't what had been taken from me. It was what I still had. I had my children, I had Olivia, and I had the strength to keep moving forward. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about thriving. It was about creating a life that was built on the lessons I had learned, the strength I had gained, and the people who loved me. I wasn't going to let the past define me. I was going to use it to shape a future that was better than anything I had ever imagined. The house was starting to feel like home again. But more than that, I was starting to feel like myself again. I wasn't the man I had been when I first came back. I had rebuilt my life, and now it was time to build my future. A future where I wasn't defined by betrayal or loss, but by strength, love, and resilience. The weeks that followed felt like I was navigating a new world. The house was beginning to feel like a home again, but there was still so much to be done. Not just with the house, but with my life. My business had started to pick up again, but I still had so many emotions to work through. The trust that had been broken, the betrayal that had shattered my sense of security, all of that was still fresh in my mind. But I wasn't going to let those things stop me. I had already fought too hard to give up now. Olivia and I spent more time together, and slowly I found myself letting her in more. I had been so afraid of opening up before, but I realized that with her, I didn't have to hide. She respected my boundaries, but she was there when I needed her the most. The more time we spent together, the more I realized just how much I had been shutting myself off from love, from connection. I was ready to change that. Still, the battle wasn't over. The divorce was final, but I had yet to face one more challenge, Sarah. I hadn't heard from her much since the trial, but I knew that wouldn't last. She had never been one to back down, and I wasn't naive enough to think that she would just walk away quietly. I had learned that lesson the hard way. Then, one afternoon, as I was sitting in the living room with Olivia, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew instantly who it was. My stomach tightened as I picked up the phone. "Jake," Sarah's voice came through the receiver, cold and detached. "We need to talk." I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I wanted to re-enter that world of chaos. But I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. I had to face her eventually. "About what?" I asked, my voice steady. "I know I've hurt you," she said, her voice dripping with feigned remorse. "And I know I've made mistakes. But I'm asking you to be reasonable here. I want to make things right." I could hardly believe my ears. After everything, the betrayal, the lies, the sale of our home, now she was trying to act like she was the victim? "I don't think there's anything to talk about, Sarah," I replied, feeling the anger rising inside me again. "You made your choices. I'm moving on. You should too." She was quiet for a moment, and I could almost feel the tension building on the other end of the line. "You don't understand, Jake," she said, her voice now more frantic. "I've lost everything too. My reputation, my life, everything is falling apart. I'm trying to fix things." The words hit me like a punch in the gut, but this time I wasn't falling for it. I had spent years trying to please her, trying to make her happy while she was making decisions behind my back. The last thing I was going to do now was let her back into my life. "You can't fix what you broke," I said firmly. "You made your choice, Sarah. And now I'm making mine." There was a long pause, and I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end. "Jake, please. Don't do this. We have history. We have a life together." "We did have a life together," I corrected. "But that life is over. It's time for you to let go." And with that, I hung up. I sat there for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling in. I had said what needed to be said, but it still didn't feel like enough. Even after everything she had done, I was still feeling the impact of her betrayal. I couldn't keep carrying that weight around. I needed to let go completely. Olivia noticed my silence and sat beside me, placing a comforting hand on mine. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I nodded, though my mind was still racing. "I'm getting there. I didn't expect her to keep coming back like this." Olivia squeezed my hand. "You've been through so much, Jake. But you're stronger now. And you don't have to face this alone. We're in this together." I looked at her, my heart swelling with gratitude. She was right. I didn't have to face this alone. I had rebuilt my life, brick by brick, and now I had the support of someone who truly cared for me. And that gave me the strength to finally close the door on the past. The next few weeks were filled with small victories. The house was fully restored, my business was growing, and my relationship with Olivia was blossoming. But even with everything that was going well, there was one thing I knew for sure. Sarah had underestimated me. She had thought I would crumble. She had thought that her betrayal would break me. But it hadn't. Instead, I had become someone stronger, someone more determined, and someone ready to face whatever came next. I wasn't going to let the past define me anymore. I was going to keep moving forward, building a life that was mine, a life I had earned. Weeks passed, and the dust from the courtroom battle had finally settled. The house was mine again, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. I wasn't just rebuilding walls and rooms, I was rebuilding myself. Everything I had gone through, all the pain and betrayal, was now a distant echo. It didn't define me anymore. I was stronger than that. Olivia and I grew closer each day. She didn't just stand by me. She was a force that helped me grow, helped me see that life wasn't just about surviving the storm. It was about learning to dance in the rain. Her support had been unwavering, but she never pressured me. She gave me the space to heal while also being the person I could lean on when things got tough. One evening, we were sitting on the back porch of the house, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The air was cool, and the night felt calm, peaceful even. I looked at Olivia, and for the first time, I saw the life I had always wanted. Not the life I had planned with Sarah, but something new, something better. "You've helped me find my way again," I said softly, turning to face her. "I don't know if I could have done this without you." Olivia smiled, her eyes sparkling in the fading light. "You don't have to do it alone anymore, Jake. You have me and I have you. Together, we can face anything." In that moment, I realized that this was what I had been missing all along. True partnership. The kind of relationship where both people were willing to build something together, to support each other through the highs and the lows, without fear of abandonment or betrayal. "I think," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "we've both been through enough. It's time to start living. Not just surviving, but really living." She nodded, squeezing my hand. "We'll make it, Jake. We already are." As the weeks turned into months, I focused on the future. My business was thriving again, but this time it wasn't about just making money. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to create a legacy. It was time to give back, to use everything I had learned to help others who had been through hardship, who had fought their own battles. I started mentoring young entrepreneurs, teaching them not just about business, but about life. I wanted them to understand that no matter what happened in their lives, no matter how many times they were knocked down, they could always rise again. I wanted to show them that with the right mindset, they could turn any setback into a stepping stone toward success. My relationship with Olivia blossomed into something beautiful and real. We talked about our future, a future where we weren't bound by past mistakes, but free to create whatever we wanted. I no longer feared the unknown. I embraced it. Together, we could conquer anything. One night, as we sat at the kitchen table, making dinner with the kids, I felt a warmth that I hadn't known in years. The laughter of our children filled the house, and for the first time, I realized that this life was everything I had ever wanted. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was ours. That night, as I tucked my kids into bed, I thought about how far I had come. From the moment I walked into that empty house, to the battle in the courtroom, to rebuilding everything from the ground up, I had done it. I had fought back against the betrayal, against the darkness, and now I was standing in the light. I wasn't who I used to be. I wasn't the man who had been blindsided by betrayal. I was someone new, someone stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever before. And the best part? I wasn't done yet. Life was full of challenges, and I knew there would be more ahead. But I had learned that it wasn't about avoiding the hard times. It was about facing them head-on, knowing that no matter what, I could always fight back. And this time, I wasn't just fighting for survival. I was fighting for happiness, for peace, for the future I knew I deserved. The months that followed felt like a fresh start, but not in the way I had expected. It wasn't just about reclaiming my home or winning a legal battle. It wasn't just about fixing the house and rebuilding what Sarah had torn apart. It was about rebuilding myself, reclaiming my peace, my joy, and my belief in the future. Olivia and I had made a life together, but I knew that the real work had just begun. We both came into this with pasts, with baggage, with experiences that shaped who we were. But I also knew that we had something solid, something built on trust, respect, and understanding. As I worked to grow my business, Olivia was there beside me, offering encouragement, helping me see the bigger picture. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about purpose. I wanted my work to matter, to make a difference in the lives of others. I wanted to be an example for my children, for them to see that no matter how bad things get, you can always rise. You can always rebuild. Olivia and I started talking about our future more seriously. What did we want out of life? What were our goals, both individually and together? We weren't just talking about buying a house or making money. We were talking about legacy, about making sure our children grew up in a home that was full of love, support, and opportunity. We talked about traveling, about helping those in need, about living a life that was meaningful, not just comfortable. It was during one of these conversations that Olivia said something that stopped me in my tracks. "Jake," she said, her voice soft but full of meaning. "We've been through so much already, and you know what? I think it's time we start thinking about adding to our family." The words hung in the air between us, and I could feel the weight of them. For so long, I had kept my heart closed, afraid to open up to anyone again. I had been betrayed, hurt, and broken. I wasn't sure I could go through that again. But as I looked at Olivia, I realized that I had already opened up to her in ways I hadn't to anyone else. And maybe, just maybe, I was ready to take that next step. "I think you're right," I said slowly, taking her hand in mine. "We've built something strong together. Maybe it's time to take the next step." And so we started planning. It wasn't an easy decision, and it wasn't something we took lightly. But I knew that with Olivia by my side, we could face anything. The future wasn't certain, but it was ours to shape. Together, we began making plans for the future, not just as a couple but as a family. It wasn't about replacing what I had lost with Sarah. It was about creating something new, a future filled with hope, laughter, and love. I knew there would be challenges, but I also knew that I wasn't alone anymore. I had Olivia and I had my children. Together, we could handle whatever life threw at us. One day, while walking through a local park, Olivia and I found ourselves talking about something we hadn't addressed before. The kind of legacy we wanted to leave for our children. We discussed everything, from values and traditions to practical lessons they would carry into their adulthood. I took a deep breath and turned to her. "I want them to know the truth," I said, my voice steady. "That no matter what happens, we'll be here for them. That they don't have to be afraid of the future because we'll always have their backs." Olivia smiled, her eyes full of warmth. "And we'll teach them to fight for what they believe in, to stand up for themselves no matter the odds." We spent hours walking that day, talking about our plans, about how we could guide our children through the challenges they would face in life. It was one of those rare, perfect moments where everything felt aligned, where the past no longer had a hold on us, and the future seemed bright. By the time we returned home, the sun had set, casting a soft golden light over everything. I looked around, taking in the sight of the house we had rebuilt, the home that we had turned into a symbol of new beginnings. I had learned so much through all of this, about love, resilience, and the power of starting over. I had learned that the past didn't have to define me. The things that happened to me, the pain I endured, didn't have to control my future. I had the power to shape my own destiny. As Olivia and I stood there, side by side, I knew that this was just the beginning. The battle had been hard, but it had made us stronger. And now we were ready to face whatever came next, together. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that shook you to your core? How did you rebuild your life, your trust, and your future after everything was turned upside down? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If you've enjoyed this journey of recovery and triumph, Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of resilience and strength. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter, and be part of this incredible community. We're in this together. Let's continue fighting for the life we deserve.